I went undercover at one of the beauty industry's largest exhibitions to find out how beauty trends are made, and whether or not this is where the Kardashians get their brand ideas from. This conference is where beauty brands are built. This is where the trends are made, and I wanted to know what to look out for. What's coming down the pipe in beauty? How are some of these brands actually made? And I want to see where the money is exchanging hands to know what I should be excited for or avoiding over the next few years. The business of beauty is expensive. $430 billion expensive, to be precise. This also means that the beauty industry is one of the most profitable beauty industries out there. Some products are marked up 10x, 20x, even 50x of what it actually costs to make them. However, with celebrity beauty brands popping up left and right, with new trends and new ingredients seeming to enter the market every single day, and brand new devices that are randomly popping up online, the beauty industry is only expected to get bigger. And I need to take accountability. I was partially responsible for that, especially 15 years ago when I was struggling with my acne at its worst. I personally spent way too much money on beauty products, random devices, makeup palettes, etc. years ago, especially back in high school. I would literally use every single paycheck that I got for random foundations with magical ingredients that would promise to cover my acne. All sorts of devices and tools that promised to make me pretty, and all sorts of crazy things for the simple need of feeling like I could fit in, just to be pretty enough to belong. But were these brands actually creating products to help me with my insecurities, or were they just manipulating me into spending money on new trendy ingredients to make money off of my insecurities? Well, I wanted to go to where the beauty trends are made, both 15 years ago when I was struggling with my skin, all the way up until today. I want to understand how the business of beauty works, how the brands meet the people who create the packaging, who create the formulas, and how they promote them using all these celebrities. And personally, I want to get a leg up on the Kardashians to be able to look out for what they're going to be pushing and promoting on Instagram next year. Cosmoprof has been around since 1967, and it actually started in Italy, but in 2003 is when it first started in North America. And this is the place where brands are built, where money exchanges hands. The secret rooms where meetings are had, where they literally speak about what ingredients or tools are going to trend so that the entire industry can be on the same page and start making money off of it. Or maybe creating amazing revolutions to help us with our skin and our beauty? I needed to find out. Unfortunately, I was not invited this year, but I had a sneaking suspicion of how I could go undercover to get in. You see, I attended this conference as a guest 11 years ago. I was invited to speak on a panel about content creation in the beauty industry. This was 11 years ago, before content creation was really a major thing. It's actually where I met both Susan Liara and Tati Westbrook, which also goes to show Cosmoprof has been on the cutting edge of these trends for a long time, because the influencer and content creator industry has absolutely exploded over the last 5 years. However, I was not invited to speak on a panel this time, and the people who used to run the show don't run it anymore. The tickets were sold out, I didn't have any contacts or connections, and nobody that I knew was working there, so this wasn't going to be easy. But I knew a few brands that were going to be there as exhibitors, so like a desperate person on a dating app, I decided to shoot my shot. Because I was able to get an exhibitor badge, I knew that I needed to take advantage of this opportunity. I wanted to go in and get the scoop. I wanted to see what was going on, overhear and listen to the conversations, and even sit back down in some of the chairs and some of the seats where the big decisions are made. I wanted to use this badge to go undercover and find out how the trends are made, and find out where the beauty industry is going. So that in the next few years, you and I get to know which brands are trying to help us and which brands are trying to manipulate us. Now, the first hurdle was when I got to Las Vegas, where the convention was held. The hotels were sold out. Thankfully, I knew a few people who knew a few people, and I was able to stay at the MGM Grand. Unfortunately, however, this was quite far away from Cosmoprof, meaning that I had to either walk or take an Uber or take the monorail. And for those who haven't been to Las Vegas, it's like 110 degrees. It was hot. Thank goodness I am not only a sunscreen queen, but I was going to a conference where they literally talk about producing and manufacturing sunscreens, so you bet that I slathered up. Now, the other issue is that I've been going through some personal issues. So I cry every day, multiple times a day. My face is puffy. And even mustering up the courage to walk out of a hotel room, then into public, then into a literal beauty conference while my face is swollen and my voice is cracking and I just finished crying. It doesn't sound like much, but for me, this was a huge hurdle that I had to overcome, especially when some of the people that I spoke to could literally tell that my voice was cracking. My personal stuff. Yeah. She's like, what's wrong with your voice? I was like, oh, I was crying today. But literally when you put on good skincare, it makes you feel better. When walking into the exhibit, it is massive. It is huge. They have security so that the general public can't attend. But when you get on the floor, these luxurious white carpets literally feel like they are rolling out the future of beauty right before your eyes. To the left, you had booths with skincare brands and hair care, from famous ones that you'd recognize to some of the Discover Beauty ones that you would never know. All the way over on the right, where you had manufacturers and packaging experts, the peoples whose names are never mentioned, but who are literally responsible for creating and labeling the bottles that we hold up and use every single day. There was hair care, there was skincare, there was nail care, there were fragrances that were based on zodiac signs. You name it, it was there, including a couple of questionable characters. Some people who didn't even know the cruelty-free regulation for their own countries, some people who blatantly avoided my questions, and some people who didn't even know what was in their own skincare products that they claimed to have created. And there were some brands launching new devices and things that were just downright questionable. However, there were also some people there that were absolutely brilliant. Gems to the industry. Chemists, doctors, people who understood both the beauty industry, the products, and how they work on and for our bodies inside and out. And some people who, yes, have built some of the world's biggest brands, including some of the celebrity ones that I got to sit down and have lunch with. One of the first things I noticed comparing it to my experience 11 years ago, it has changed a ton. There were so many international beauty brands, specifically Asian beauty brands and Korean beauty brands. 11 years ago, those didn't exist. There was Amica, there was Olaplex, there were a bunch of things like even Neutrogena, but now it was K-beauty, baby. It was beauty brands from India. It was device manufacturers from all over Asia, and even some of the platforms and the retailers that are responsible for selling those products. Literally, the person who is responsible for buying and stocking all of the products on shelves at Costco walked right by me. What was also crazy was the natural section, because it is huge. The natural and green section had always been there, but this time it was probably 5 or 6 times larger. The problem was there were still some natural beauty brands that could not tell me what natural meant. Some green beauty brands who couldn't tell me what green was or how it was any different than brands that were not green, which further explains why we need a little bit more regulation in the industry. However, there were some brands in the green beauty section that actually seemed to know their shit. Specifically ones like Earth Harbor that not only agreed to speak to me, but told me about how their brand was founded by a toxicologist and how, because of the lack of regulation overall, they look for certifications, such as the ones on this billboard. Some of the exhibits were so beautiful. One Korean beauty brand literally shipped a rock from their office in Korea all the way to Las Vegas, and they're gonna ship this rock back to Korea. This rock weighs more than me, my family, and my entire family's history. I don't know how they even got it in here. There were other device manufacturers that really seemed to be utilizing some old technology in new and innovative ways, and others that just made me shake my head. Like, this is an LED light for your hoo-ha. And when I was asking about this, he was like, oh, well, it's for inflammation. Oh, well, it's for vaginal tightening. Oh, well, it's for antibacterial. I'm like, okay, well, wait, which one is it? Because from an anatomical perspective, none of this makes sense. One thing that did really stand out to me was the focus that a lot of these different brands and retailers and manufacturers and people had on trying to stand out. When I was asking about what the challenges were in the industry for a brand, they kept on saying how there is so much competition. And especially the brands that were based on science, based on years of experience, they were having a really hard time competing with a lot of these newer celebrity-backed brands that are super trendy and flashy. They have these cool new compounds, but the science doesn't really back them up. Yet the sentiment that I heard on this trade show floor, that those other brands who are really pulling claims out of thin air are the ones that are performing because they're more interesting, versus the ones that are medically and scientifically backed, but not as flashy. I also asked some experts about what the consumer was facing or some of the issues that consumers had. There's literally a section called the press section where brands sit down to pitch their products to reporters, to people who write the magazines, who are literally in charge of the celebrity beauty articles that you see that pop up online. And so many of them reflected the same issue. A lot of consumers are confused. There's so much noise out there, and it's really hard to figure out what works and what doesn't. I was one of them 15 years ago, and in some ways, I still am today, trying to cut through the bullshit to find out what's actually worth my money. I also noticed that at least in the skincare section, so many different brands are trying to launch masks or moisturizers. It was almost like every single brand had a new moisturizer or a new face mask that they were trying to promote. And it wasn't just the sheet masks, like Korean sheet masks that are really trendy, but like actual face masks. And I wonder if we're going to start seeing more of those in the future. The other focus was definitely on celebrity brands. So many different brands spoke about the ideal celebrity or influencer that would promote their product. One was super kind and said me, which was so sweet, but I was also like, yeah, no, this doesn't count. I want to know what you're talking about. And a lot of these brands really wanted the traditional celebrities backing their products. We've all seen Hailey Bieber's Road Beauty. We've all seen the Kardashians and their multiple skincare lines, and how someone like Kylie Jenner can be featured on the front page of a magazine being a self-made billionaire because of her beauty innovations. And it seems like all of these brands are not only confused, but a little bit stressed, trying to get that attention, and they want to latch on to one of these celebrities so that they too can feel special or stand out in a very crowded market. It seems like everyone was trying to stand out, whether it was these fancy booths with lighting and rocks that were shipped over from Korea, or literal mascots that would dance around trying to get people's attention. Everyone just wanted to stand out in a place that was literally and figuratively so crowded. And it almost reminded me of younger me. You know, being 16, 17 years old, struggling with my acne and not feeling pretty, going to school with pounds of foundation and crazy pink blush with blue striped eyeshadow that matched my band t-shirt, just trying to stand out, just to be pretty enough to be worth somebody's attention. And I couldn't help but kind of feel for some of these brands, especially some of the indie ones. You see, there's this entire section called Discover Beauty. It's where some of these small brands literally start. Brands that don't have the big backing, they don't have the big money, and they don't have the celebrity endorsement. But these are brands made by people with a passion who know that something in the beauty industry needs to be done differently. There was specifically one girl whose products were amazing, and I didn't know how these weren't more viral yet. Not only because they were trendy and interesting, but because they literally had the science to back them up. She was somebody who loved travel, and while she was traveling, she would experience these different beauty rituals that she wished other people knew about. But she was kind of afraid of cultural appropriation because she was from India, but how would it look if she started creating and promoting Japanese products? So instead of doing that, she would literally partner with an expert from Japan to bring geisha culture to life, or literally partner with an Indian princess to bring the principles of Ayurvedic medicine to life. Literally, she makes candles based on some of these cultures with wax that can be used as a moisturizer and a body balm. And I thought this was so innovative. Skincare candles? Freaking skincare candles? Not to mention, but she's not appropriating these other cultures. She's appreciating them, working with experts from those parts of the world to bring their culture to life, even using old recycled kimonos to create makeup removing wipes, or going to Turkey to create a sunscreen that is based off of the ritual of baths that means so much to that culture. And it's brands like those that I wish had a little bit more celebrity exposure or backing or funding so that some of these hardworking and passionate people could continue to take over the industry. You see, this Discover Beauty section is literally where brands such as Indie Lee Skincare, where Briogeo, and even Drunk Elephant got their start. So I probably met some of the brands there that are going to take off in the next couple years. But the hard part is that there is so much competition and so much confusion in general that wasn't there 11 years ago when some of those brands launched. I don't understand how some of these brands are going to get a leg up in the industry, even with some of the trends that are coming out here. The main trends were things such as international beauty, moisturizers and masks, moisturizers and masks, moisturizers and masks, and of course, celebrity promotion. But one other trend was what happens to beauty products once they're used. You see, when I was walking the floor, I was so honored that a couple of beautiful butterflies came up to me. Did you hear that? My armpit farted. It wasn't me, it was my armpit. But did you hear it? I don't know if you did. I sure did. Honored that a couple of beautiful. When I was walking the floor meeting certain people, one girl named Sandra came up to me. She owns a small beauty retailer, but one of her biggest concerns was recycling. And her reason for being at Cosmoprof was to understand what happens to our beauty products once they're done. Now, I agree with Sandra, our beautiful butterfly and community member, that all beauty brands should be more responsible for what happens to their products when they're done. Her website literally allows people to send their empty pans back and get them refilled. And while there are some big brands that are starting to care about recycling, it was really cool to see that a lot of the brands were kind of swarming to this section, wanting to understand recycling and sustainable skincare options so that when we do consume products, we can do them with less of an impact on the environment and the planet. Thankfully, it kind of seemed like that was a trend that was actually going in the right direction. The problem is, of course, the cost. Even Sandra spoke about MOQs, minimum order quantities. Essentially, if you want to purchase a product and list it at a retailer, whether you're huge like Costco or Target or someone small like We Hit Pan, you need to purchase a certain amount of products. You can't just buy one the way that you and I can at Sephora. And for retailers, sometimes that's 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 units. And once they ship those things off one by one to their customers, how are they supposed to make sure that they're being used completely or recycled appropriately? I think this is one of the huge issues that the beauty industry has that it needs to tackle. And there are some people, specifically people at this trade show, who are making waves in that by recycling, by reusing, by refilling. But I do think that it's something that is hopefully going to become a trend that we see more widespread because we need it. But I came here undercover as an exhibitor to get the inside scoop, to find out where the industry was going. And I'll tell you, yes, it's going towards recycling, but all of these brands were desperate to stand out. And so many of them that I spoke to thought that the big name celebrities were going to be their ticket to doing it. So as much as I cringe to say it, because you know I'm not always a fan of them, I think we're gonna see a lot more celebrity beauty brands. If there are chemists and doctors and great people behind them, awesome. But if there are just a bunch of trendy ingredients or these vaginal LED devices, it honestly sounds like people desperate to stand out trying to make a quick buck. So how does the beauty industry work? Well, there are different ways, but here are the main ones. The first is private label. A manufacturer, probably one who attends this event, has a whole bunch of base formulas and base products. They are ready to go and just looking for someone to slap their name on them. You have then people who are walking this floor willing to do that. Then there's white labeling. Brands that already exist and probably have a decent formula who are willing to sell the same formula to 50 different people, all for them to rebrand and name. Then there is customization, where a chemist or a manufacturer is willing to work with a founder or creative director to custom create a unique product and bring it to market. But then you can't just go to market. You have to understand how to package and label these things. And yes, those packaging people were there. Once it's packaged, you need to distribute it somewhere. A lot of brands will use their own website, but many are looking towards social media. And this is where those celebrity beauty brands come in. Maybe they'll partner with a celebrity who just slaps their face on it to pretend that it was theirs from the beginning, or maybe the celebrity was really involved hand in hand. Or if a brand decides to not go with celebrity beauty marketing, that brand needs a logo, it needs design. And there were people in graphic and user design there who were ready to offer their services to brands who needed it. Once that brand is created, it has a product, packaging, and a brand logo or a face to promote it. They need to go somewhere, they need to be distributed. And you bet those distributors were there. Whether it was Nordstrom, Sephora, if it was the Costco people who walked right by me, or CVS, the people who are responsible for filling the shelves of the retailers that you and I shop at were there, looking for the most innovative, exciting things that they could purchase in bulk at the right prices to get into your and my shopping carts. And normally that's kind of where it stops, right? You or I buy something, we use it, and hopefully we enjoy it. But the good news, and the reason that I have hope for this industry, is because there was an additional step there. The recycling, the green aspect of it, the ability to reuse and recycle, although reducing is still very important. There are companies like TerraCycle, or companies that literally refill these old pans or can melt them down and remake them into new things. And while that step is not integral in the beauty industry cycle right now, I really hope that it's going to be in the future. And it almost reminds me again of me and my acne. I recycled my struggle with skincare in order to understand what others go through, to become a medical esthetician, to help other people understand and feel empowered by their skin. And I recycled that pain that life handed me to hopefully do something positive, to help others love and embrace themselves. That's why this channel literally exists. And this channel is the reason I was able to even get into that conference in the first place. And just the way I was able to recycle that pain, I hope that the beauty industry is able to recycle a couple of those things that are ugly. Maybe let's reduce the amount of fake celebrity brands that we have pushing and shilling products, but maybe let's increase our equity in brands that are actually created by passionate founders who care about what they do. Let's cut down on manufacturers that just create in bulk, hoping that they'll sell these things before they expire, and putting our money into brands that come from manufacturers with smaller batches who try to create sustainably, only creating what's needed or what's pre-ordered for the future. And let's actually reuse and recycle. Let's return our empty product bottles or use them for other things. Let's recycle them and give them new life so that the beauty industry can be beautiful literally from the inside out. I learned a lot, but I've still got a few questions. And I can't wait to see what trends I witnessed at this conference pop up on the store shelves of Costco, on Sephora's website, and on celebrity Instagram accounts this and next year.